What's up? Welcome to Tales Tomorrow. I'm Morrow, your storyteller for today. With me I have some more RPG horror stories. Speaking of, not necessarily about RPG horror stories, but I had an idea of maybe checking out another D&D related subreddit called D&D Memes. Maybe checking them out together with Mary and Micah. And while looking at memes is not necessarily what I usually do on this channel, some of those memes can be pretty horrifying. Some memes just simply don't land, and they can be a nightmare of their own. But if you'd like for me to bring Mary and Micah along for this journey, please let me know that down in the comments below, and I'm gonna get to my first RPG horror story for today. Have the party missed the final session of a 3-year campaign? IGM ran a game of D&D that went from level 1 to level 17 for a little over 3 years. The plan was to play until level 20, but we ended up needing to speed up the ending before I left for college. I spent a long time working out how I could reconnect to each player's backstory to the final fight, and in the 2 sessions leading up to the final session, a large majority of my players showed up late enough to delay the game by 2 hours. A month before the final session, I found a day that worked for everybody and reminded them twice a week to keep that day completely open, because we would be playing until we finished. Come time for the final session, 2 of my 6 players showed up an hour and a half late. I didn't want to start the final stretch without them, so I waited until we got there to play. Their goal was to get through the villain's fortress and confront him before he started a ritual that would end the world. For the sake of time, I had to remove many of the puzzles and fights leading up to the villain, and they made it to his lair in about 2 hours. This was originally meant to be a multiple session dungeon that I prepared, so all things considered, it was very fast. That's really quick thinking on a draw. I mean, yeah, it still takes 2 hours and everything, but considering it was supposed to be a multi-session thing, pretty impressive, honestly, DM. Pretty impressive. Sometimes timing doesn't work out, and when you really cram it to try to get the session, the big finale out of the way, at times you have to ask yourself, do I just let the puzzles be as they are, or do I shorten them so that it doesn't take 2 sessions instead 2 hours? And probably you could have sped it up just a little bit more, but hey, you're doing your best. I'm not gonna blame you for it. I think cramming a couple session puzzles into 2 hours was great. Let's continue. 30 minutes into the final fight, 2 of my players, both of the ones who were late and delayed the game, brought up random obligations that they hadn't mentioned before, and abruptly left the game. Shortly after, another player left as well. I'm assuming you maybe have at least maybe 6 players, so that means you only have 3 players instead, which for balance of combat, yeah, that really affects it. But also kind of weird, did they never explain why they were late, or why they're just dipping out of nowhere? Did they get bored of the game, or were they actually cramming because they have other obligations? If somebody describes them leaving as having just other obligations, or just, I have a thing, I feel like maybe they're leaving for another reason entirely, and it's, I guess, a question of what's going on behind the scenes, or if they're actually leaving because other obligations, or just saying they are. I don't know, but yeah, it's kind of a rough situation to be put in. Let's see how this ends. At this point, what is now half of the party is trying to beat the second and third phases of this fight, meant to be difficult for 6 level 17 players. Ah, I see. I didn't want to punish these players for their comrades leaving, so I modified the fight on the spot to remove the 3rd phase. 2 of these were also first-time players, one of whom was my younger brother in 6th grade, who honestly played pretty well given his age and experience, and I really didn't want to let the first campaign to end in defeat. After they won, I also had to modify the epilogue I had prepared because I had tied in most of the backstories of the players who left the session. Those who remained still seem to have fun. We're all still friends, but suffice it to say, I'm now running with a different group of players. Clarification, my brother joined the campaign in the last year. He wasn't playing since 3rd grade. Honestly, DM, I mean, yeah, it's a horror story, but you know what? Bravo, I commend you for trying to save it as best you can. You did as good a job as you possibly could have, honestly. With having half your party basically dipping halfway through, or towards the end of it, and try to cram the session before you gotta go and everything, I mean, you did pretty good. And I mean, as long as players had a good time with it, it sucks that it happened the way it did, but at least you didn't have a campaign fail, or just everybody die and just end on a sour note. The players survived, and they won. BBG is dead, and the story can properly conclude. But I think you did the best with what you had going. And hopefully your future sessions and future games are going swimmingly. I wish you nothing but the best. Right, let's get to the next story for today. We played a 2.5-year campaign where almost nothing happened, and then the DM got big mad. A few years ago, my D&D group finished the Waterdeep Dragon Heist campaign and had a lot of fun. Wanted to continue the story and were happy with how the DM had run things, so when he offered to transition us into a homebrew campaign, we all excitedly agreed. The new storyline began with Waterdeep coming under terror attack from an unknown source, although from the jump, things started off pretty slow. Clues were hard to find. Waterdeep was the primary setting for this campaign, so all I really did for a while was run around town, talking to people who don't know anything, following vague leads that lead nowhere. We were still having fun with shenanigans on the side though, and dutifully kept doing our best with the main plot, knowing it was the DM's first homebrew and wanting to support him. So we got a continuation from Waterdeep Dragon Heist, which I've never really played, but I'm assuming it takes its place in Waterdeep. And they're looking for clues, but they can't find any. Maybe that might be DM over planning or thinking, oh, players need to go here specifically because that's what I think would be logically sound. But your players are your players. They're gonna pay attention to other things. Maybe find red herrings or seek out things or consider one thing being a red herring over the other. So you gotta sometimes, throw them a bone, help them find the things that they want to find, not just have them wander out for days on days on days, Eventually, we just kind of bump into the bad guys and find out that a massive gang of were-rats was to blame for the terror attack. Okay, so why are they doing this? We aren't a party of murder hobos, so we tried talking to them, knowing they wouldn't be super friendly, but doing our best to get at least some kind of intel. The were-rats just spit in our faces and try to kill us, so we have to kill them back. We try to bargain with them, we try to intimidate them, but nope. Though just video game mooks that would rather die than talk. So still no new clues for us, which stings because we have nothing else to go on. Back to aimlessly wandering around. Meanwhile, the DM is setting up personalized B-plots for our characters. However, he's making some weird choices for our PCs. For one, he completely rewrote part of my sorcerer's backstory to make it way more dark and edgy. He announced this change on the fly mid-game, when I couldn't really do anything about it. He also kept adding darker and edgier content into my sorcerer's character arc, which was very annoying because I wanted to play a more upbeat character, and he never consulted me about what he was planning. Basically, he just kept making her accidentally murder and maim people, and then have feel really bad about it. Okay, this DM is kind of rewriting your backstory when you didn't ask for it, and that's a bad thing to do. Listen, if you want to add something to a character's backstory, check with the player if they're cool with that sort of thing. And if they're not cool, don't do it. Just don't rewrite people's characters without them knowing ahead of time about this sort of thing happening. Don't just do it on the fly and be like, surprise, your character's now more edgy because I think it's cooler. But our cleric was having a harder time. The player wanted the cleric to go through a deconstruction arc and walk away from his religion. DM flat out refused this, saying that people can deconstruct from religion in D&D because everyone knows for sure that gods are real. And if cleric stopped worshiping his god, he'd lose his powers and not have a purpose in the story anymore. DM and the cleric went back and forth for months, trying to decide how to compromise on the character arc. Eventually, I think the cleric just relented and let the DM set up some storyline where the cleric fell away from his god, died, and then suddenly got resurrected Jesus style. The DM is not religious to my knowledge, so I have no idea why was he so stinky about this. Was it the DM's idea to resurrect Jesus style? Like it had to be specifically, it's Jesus or nothing. If your cleric wants to step away from a god, maybe they want to reroll into a fighter instead. You just have them reroll their class and character. I mean, the closest thing to a cleric would be paladin, like an Oathbreaker paladin. Maybe they got some sort of transformation about it or something. Maybe let's say cleric was to go away from their god, but maybe once they get a connection with druidism, they don't have to change much of those stuff anyway. The stats can stay the same, just have to change the class entirely. And maybe you can give some proficiencies like the heavy arm proficiency just for the hex of it. Let's see how this ends up. But back to the main plot. At some point, our rogue player moves further away and decides they can't come to the game anymore because the drive is too long. Fair, but we have to scramble to finish up a plotline what we're doing surrounding their character. Because we're now down a player, DM used this opportunity to bring in his girlfriend as a new rogue. We knew he had already been planning on bringing her in, and we're totally down with it. It was kind of a clunky transition, and the side quest we were doing, which involved collecting some MacGuffins, got pretty truncated, but the DM seemed to make it work. He even did some single sessions with just his girlfriend to give her character context for the story and intel to bring us when she joined. Would have a good narrative reason to let her into our investigation. Seemed like a good planning, but, well, you will see. Before I get to the tipping point of the story, I want to mention a few notable details. At some point, DM decided to cameo the PCs from a D&D podcast and have our characters meet them as NPCs. Thing was, only one of our players was remotely familiar with this podcast, so the DM was role-playing these podcast characters, doing all their bits and goofs from the show, and cracking himself up like he's doing some amazing crossover episode. Meanwhile, 3 of us stared at him in confusion, and the 4th just smiled uncomfortably. Also, every map he put in was a freaking maze. The exciting non-Waterdeep locations we got to explore during this campaign were labyrinthian sewage tunnels under Waterdeep, the labyrinthian trash heaps just outside Waterdeep, and the actual ancient labyrinth located under the labyrinthian trash heaps just outside of Waterdeep. God, it's a little bit awkward when you DM just roleplays on themselves, a bunch of different characters, and even cracking himself up over the jokes, and everybody just kind of sitting there like, and then we get back to the game, right, DM? Oh, you're not done? Okay. Also, the whole labyrinth thing, you know, there's other maps you can use that aren't labyrinths. Like, there are resources you can find online for free maps to use that aren't labyrinths. There's probably more to Waterdeep than just labyrinth this, labyrinth that. How about you labyrinth some good ideas instead? Anyway, our characters finally find a lead to their investigation. It isn't much to go on, but there's something sus in a store we're checking out. So despite our team being pretty good aligned, we decide to break into a secret room on nothing more than a hunch, because we're just that lost and desperate for something to do. Thankfully, there's actual major plot stuff in there, and we hit a huge break in the case. DM is all, wow, I didn't think we would get here this fast. I'm shocked as to how okay he is with how crazy long this has taken, but oh well, at least he got somewhere. Now we can hopefully begin piecing out intel together and start solving things. Like the next session after this, the DM had local authorities who previously were completely clueless and useless in this investigation suddenly announced they figured everything out. They know where the bad guys are, and are sending us in with some other adventuring parties to round them up. Okay. That's pretty anticlimactic, but at least we're not wandering around the sewers anymore. We then proceed to go to a massive trash heap to look for the bad guy's leader and spend like 10 more sessions wandering around in trash. 10 sessions? 10 sessions being stuck in trash labyrinth? Are you fucking for real? Are you actually fucking for real? I wish there was a fictional wall here so I could just like This sounds insane. How are y'all doing this? What kind of mental fortitude do you have to do 10 sessions of going through trash labyrinth to find a guy? 10 sessions, guys! Meanwhile, the DM has been constantly making my character's life worse, to the point where I don't even know why she'd stay in the story and not just leave town. He's also progressing Cleric's plotline to the point where he isn't hearing from his god anymore, and thus his powers are only kinda working. He had to roll every time he wants to cast a spell to see if it works, and it's only a 50-50 chance. Most of the rolls have been bad, so he just doesn't really get to do anything anymore. This lasts for many sessions. They will run into him, Tesso, the one NPC I'm going to name in this recounting because he was the only one the DM remotely developed for his homebrew. There's really been a severe lack of named NPCs in the entire storyline. So we are facing Tesso, one of the were-rat leaders, as our group is deciding not to kill him and hurry the story to its finale. And as our group is deciding how to kill him and hurry the story to its finale, the DM excitedly goes, "Now you face off against Tesso, the Iron Rat. You must choose. Do we challenge him in battle, or try to persuade him to stand down?" Silence at the table. What do we have to say to this guy? The DM turns to his girlfriend and with some light encouragement gets her to walk her character up to his dangerous gang leader and started to speech. Tesso, don't do this. Think of your people. Think of your son. You know this is wrong. You know your son was right when he disavowed all this. We're stunned. We ask the DM if we should know who this guy is. DM explains that we met Tesso's son during the rushed MacGuffin side quest, where his girlfriend's character was introduced. The girlfriend had technically learned in her single session that the son was against Tesso's choices, and she had vague relaying this information to us back then. However, this was over a year ago, and those details had never come up again. Plus, we had to murk the hell out of Tesso's son because he was trying to kill us for our MacGuffin, so we didn't get any chance to talk to him or learn anything directly. The damn thing's juicy drama we chose to kill the son all the sessions ago, making things harder now if we want to persuade Tesso to stand down. But killing a son wasn't even a choice because the dude had a gun and he was trying to blow our heads off on sight. Yet the DM thinks this is the most exciting, dramatic moment in the story. I'm gonna say something, and I think this is very, very true. DM is the only one really having fun. Maybe the girlfriend's having fun, maybe other people are still... I mean, they're sticking around for this long. 10 sessions stuck in a sewer labyrinth, dude. 10 sessions stuck in a sewer labyrinth. You guys are insane for sticking around with this. But maybe you're having fun through this. I don't know. I mean, what other explanation do I have for why you guys sticking around with this? I have no other explanation. You guys must be actually enjoying yourselves. Maybe. I don't know. So the cleric, the druid, and I have to stop the game at this point and explain to the DM how discouraged we feel. He literally given the only interesting piece of intel in his entire narrative to his girlfriend and hinged the only meaningful plot point on it. Even more infuriating, we had tried talking to the were-rat cronies again and again with absolutely no success. But now he expects us to try that on a freaking boss? The DM insists that we did know that the were-rats were having their arms twisted into doing these crimes by another group, so we could have chosen to be sympathetic to them, even though every were-rat we encounter was nothing but a violent mook. Okay. We end up having to pause the game and schedule a meeting to talk about where the game is going. DM got pretty defensive, so we try to be gentle with him. He was our friend after all. We asked him why he didn't put more clues or intel into the game. He says he did. We just didn't find some of it. Whenever you have a mystery going on, there should be some sort of steering going on, because the way you're thinking about clues is not going to be the same way 100% how the players will think about clues. As a DM, what you know is meta knowledge your players just simply don't know. You think, oh, they would definitely want to go down to the sewers underneath the bridge in order to find the secret room that's stashed away behind a brick house, in order to find the secret letter that needs to be decrypted from Goethian into Common or something like that, I don't know, in order for them to uncover the truth about the were-rats. But the players are like, let's just talk to people, see what they say. Oh, he didn't say nothing? He didn't say nothing? We're a little stumped. We don't know what to do. Players will not think how the DM thinks, because you as a DM know what's going to happen. You know exactly the correct path, but your players will not know because you haven't left them any good clues or good crumbs to follow. They're crumbless, they're clueless, they don't know what's going on, and you're not leading them to the right paths whatsoever, or working with them to make it easier for them to spot it. If you want your players to be involved in your mystery or some sort of investigation, you gotta point them to the clues, have them roll stuff to try to figure something out. Dude, it's not that difficult. Hey, roll perception. Okay, I get a 16. You overhear from around the corner somebody talking shadily about somebody being in the sewers and people avoiding it for specific reasons, that even guards don't want to go there. And maybe have another player roll history to basically be like, oh yeah, historically sewers have been used for various different crime organizations in the past in Waterdeep in order to be the little hideaways. Perhaps this could be a good clue to start with. But no, he just leaving them just dead in the water. Like, you don't have to spoon feed your players, but you don't have to just throw them in the water and expect them to swim, because they will drown instead. He explains he was trying to make me have an existential breakdown to create transformation character moment. He doesn't say what transformation he thinks he's going through. We ask him why he couldn't just let the cleric do what he wanted, and instead took away all his agency as a player. DM states that the story he cooked up is really good, we just can't see it yet. We try to explain that he isn't doing anything to show us that good story, but he keeps reiterating that we just need to stick with it. We'll definitely see how good it is. These people stuck around for a year before they met this Tesso character. A year! 365 days with probably silver sessions at least once or twice a week going on for this. They stuck around for too long. If you can't get to the climax under a year, you're doing something wrong as a DM. Things are tense as we part, and the DM says he needs time to process. After a few weeks, however, he says he understands our concerns and will do better going forward. The campaign plot is almost done. He swears he will make the next one better. So we'll limp along, doing our best to get to the final fight and beat the ultimate were-rat leader. Oh, we somehow ended up allying with Tesso if anyone cares. The final fight is miserable. DM gave us an extra combat unit to play because the fight is enormous and the boss has way too many adds. The whole fight took 2 sessions and I think we all got maybe 3 or 4 turns in the entire battle. I'm so glad it's over, except right after the fight, DM teased like 3 more bigger badder bads that were apparently above the one we just killed. A teaser for season 2. My heart just sank as I saw how excited he was and how much I realized I did not want to do this anymore. After 2.5 years of slow, meandering gameplay, I guess I was just a fool to think we'd actually accomplish something. Also, he tells us we can level up to 9 now, and mentions how he considered not letting the cleric level up yet since his god's still talking to him, but narrowly decided against it. I want to say that's honestly really uncool of him, but I have no strength left. I'm mad. I'm mad about this, the story and the DM, because they're just being ridiculous. But I'm also kind of mad about you guys. Still sticking around for this long, the commitment, I commend you. I commend you if it was something super interesting or super captivating. But it's nothing but just a wild goose chase with no goose. There's a goose chase without a goose. There is no goose. The goose never existed. The goose isn't real. It can't hurt you. It can't help you. The goose doesn't exist. And you're on this goose chase for over 2 years or somewhere around 2-year ballpark. How do you not just leave? How do you not just be fed up with this nonsense? Just be like, listen, my time's better spent somewhere else. I'm gone. I'm off to do anything at all. At the end of the session, the DM is going his wrap-up stuff and talks about he'd like to see more player investment from us, particularly from me and the cleric. Silence again. The cleric and druid gently push back on this and things get tense again. We'll leave for the night. After a couple of days, the cleric texts the DM asking if he's okay because his tone was really weird the other night. DM gets defensive again and drags the cleric and druid into an argument. DM full-on lashes out. We don't appreciate all his hard work. We don't pay attention and take notes and engage enough. We are liars for pretending we like his content and going along with it, only to now say we don't like it. We're bad friends for accusing him of all these DM sins. Cleric and druid try to dissuade hurt feelings, but it's over. DM puts an "I'm sorry you feel that way" apology in a group server and announces the game is cancelled. He then deletes the entire server a while later. I was really trying to still see the best in my friend, thinking maybe he is going through some bad mental health or something, which is why he's lashing out. But then I find out from Cleric and Druid that he was actually bad-mouthing me to them a few weeks before our last session. He was really pissed that I got the new job, that I had me occasionally working on the weekends, because now we had less time for D&D. The other players were also often busy on weekends, so I don't know why I was suddenly the problem. Apparently the DM has said that I didn't need to take extra weekends work because even though I'm low income, I spend my small amount of disposable income on stupid stuff I don't need. So I don't actually need to make any extra money and should save more time for D&D. By the way, the DM doesn't work and just gets sent money from his rich dad. This game was such a boring disaster, and I guess my friend was actually a jerk in disguise this whole time. So kind of all good riddance, but it still stings so bad. You know what stings bad for me? That you stuck around with this person for this long. You have an endurance of Adonis, of gods. The guy sucks. His game devolved into nonsense. He was the only one having fun. At the end of the day, at least he was having fun. Because if no one was having fun throughout the entire game, that'd probably be even worse. That'd be the worst case scenario. Everybody just playing it, just hating it, feeling miserable. Also, the last part about not being mad at other people working on weekends. Dude, in today's economy, you kidding me? Somebody wants to work on weekends to earn extra dosh. Let them. Don't be mad at them. They can't make time for D&D. Maybe make your D&D time worth it then, but make it a more concise and satisfying experience instead of just a snore fest. Because that's what this session was. This entire game was a snore fest. Nothing ever happened, and anything exciting only happened at the tail end when nothing mattered at this point. I'm done speaking. My throat hurts. My voice is kind of getting hoarse. I don't know how I'm speaking still. We're gonna end the video right here. Outro Morrow, if you would. And with that, that's gonna be all our stories for today. I want to thank you very much for watching, and thanks so much for being here. If you like what I do, consider subscribing to the channel and leaving a like. Also, if the RPG Horror Stories ever goes down, or if you want to submit your own personalized horror story, email is down in the description below. I'll see you again in more Tales tomorrow. Bye-bye.